So I'm here at the Singapore National Participation 2023 Architecture Biennial Venice in the Arsenal, and I'm speaking to the curators of Singapore's national participation, Melvin, Adrian, and Ker-Shing. So thank you for your time to talk to us at the GAD Foundation about your exhibition. So this exhibition is coming from Singapore, and Singapore is a city-state, and it has one of the most successful economies and urban conditions in Asia. How does this exhibition fit within Singapore's sort of urban context today? What aspect of Singapore today do you think is reflected in what you're trying to do here? And the exhibition, when is enough?
Well, I think what's not said enough about Singapore is that we're also quite introspective.
Right.
We are planning all the time. We are making plans for how to improve the city. Government, private practitioners, we're all in kind of cahoots. Mm-hmm. And this is us showing our introspective side.
Right.
Where we're asking if we're going to keep rolling out good standards for everyone to follow. When we come to the most urgent issues we have today, inclusion, attachment, attraction, agency, freedom, how do we measure that out?
Right. So there's a measuring aspect to this. And how do we measure that? How do you propose to measure in this exhibition, for example? Adrian.
You want to say that?
Go ahead.
So actually, you spoke about something very interesting. You said Singapore is known for being very proper and being very strict. And interestingly, that was the starting point when curators got together the first time and we were chatting. Singapore is known for that. But then how do we question that?
Right.
And so the idea of, and Adrian just talked about the intangibles that make up a livable city. Mm-hmm. How do we start to articulate intangibles? How do we measure them? How do we get someone to react to what really works for them?
Right.
And so the values measurement machine that you see at the center stage of our pavilion has a series of 6 questions, coupled by a artwork that spans through many images, and a person and a visitor is able to come to that, run through that through the scroll, and almost emotively respond to a certain image and hit a certain button, and then it starts to mark on this 5-meter high scroll.
Right.
And everyone is able to make a mark, and the idea being that over the 6 months,
everybody that comes to this exhibition will be able to participate and give their opinion on these ideas you proposed.
And we're able to find consensus. We're able to even see where maybe there's a divergence in what people can accept or cannot accept. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the excitement of it.
Ker-Shing, there's a lot of nature being talked about in this exhibition. Can you describe the role of nature in the urban sphere in Singapore today, and what do you feel this exhibition makes some propositions for some other natural conditions? Can you describe the role of nature in Singapore urbanism?
It's quite interesting, the role of nature in Singapore, because we have evolved from being a garden city to a city in a garden, and recently we are talking about how can we bring in more nature into our living environment. We even have chickens running around on the road, and otters living side by side with joggers running along. Mm-hmm. Even for our roadside planting, we are looking at more than just a few species of plants. We wanted to plant a whole few more species to encourage more animals and fauna to come together. So I think we are evolving, and nature has always been a very important factor for our living conditions in Singapore.
Adrian, the Singapore, there's a diverse communities in Singapore. We know that many people are speaking many languages, there's many cultures, different religions. In a sort of age when a lot of cultures in a lot of countries, we have divisions based on this. How, and you, because I see this notion of inclusion is included in this exhibition, with regard to Leslie Loco's overall proposition of a decolonialization. How do you feel that Singapore, with inclusion and the colonial. It seems to have gone past the colonial view. How have you addressed that issue of social inclusion in the multicultural, ethnic even environment of Singapore in this exhibition?
I think we stand by something that was quite controversial, where there is a real intention to make sure that children grew up together. So the opposite idea of a ghetto, where similar cultures and customs band together to create a big community. Our communities are always multicultural.
Right.
So the kind of local patois of Malay and Hokkien and all, it's all in our ears since young. So that makes us, you've heard of Singlish, which is a version of English. And our grammar is all kind of Chinese and Malay. I think that helps. I think speaking kind of common languages and having them overlap helps us understand that when we're different and we recognize differences, which is not to shy away from differences, which is not to shy away from heterogeneity. And when you have that recognition all the time, then you understand that between opposite spectrums, it doesn't have to be a cancel culture. You have the spectrum in between, and you can find some space in between. It really reflects how we think about this.
In terms of the economic aspect of it, what do you feel, because there are also mentions here the different sort of economic realities that a city has to go through to deal with these issues. How does that work out? This multiculturalism and the economy.
I think maybe we can frame it in a way of livability versus livability, right? I think we've left no man behind.
Right.
And in Singapore, we're kind of always telling the mudflats to metropolis story.
Right.
50 years, we're from a fishing village. We're now first world economy.
Yeah.
We leave no people behind, but we also realize now that if you're starting to talk about lovability, it's not antagonistic, complementary.
Right.
It's really how you get to livability. Do you take the time to listen? Do you take the time to bring everyone along? Do you include them? And I think that's what we're finding out as well.
Yeah.
I don't think we've done so badly on that aspect, but I think this introspective kind of exercise also helps us understand that maybe sometimes we have to slow down and ask everybody what they want, and we see if we have common values and where those commonalities are. I think lovability and livability are really complementary. It's the how.
Melvin, do you think in terms of the how, both the political and economic leaders of Singapore are open to criticism? Because there's a certain critical view I see here. Can you talk a little bit about your role as architects and as stakeholders in Singapore's urbanism and architecture? How far do you think you could take critique there? And do you feel like they're responding also to architects' input?
Definitely. So in Singapore, we have quite a unique situation as opposed to many of our friends in different countries where as architects and the institutes are always kind of fighting with the government. In Singapore, and our pavilion, by the way, is co-commissioned by our authorities.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying that with the knowledge that you're...
And that actually is unique to Singapore. We actually have a very good working relationship with our government. And they are always open to hear what the practitioners need.
Right.
And we are always happy to contribute. The idea being that we're here to not give complaints, but to give solutions to what we think can do better. And as the pavilion was curated, it really was just to push the idea of, can we question it? Can we question it a little bit? Can we question it further? Can we get everyone to open our minds a bit more to some of these topics? And I think the reception has been very good. In fact, our Deputy Prime Minister is also re-looking at redefining our social compact, understanding what is it that makes Singapore work for the future. And I think it lines up well with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that there is a multi-voice, critical, social, architectural going on here in this exhibition when it's enough. Ker, there's a lot of technology here in this exhibition. So can you describe a little bit why how and we have some plotters and printers and the technical aspects, and if you're looking at it as architecturally speaking, it's a very clean, high-tech architecture. Can you speak about the design, high-tech design and technology here?
So when we started this curatorship, we wanted to create something like an object in a space, almost a totem, a modern day totem that people will come, be attracted to it, come and take a look at what it is. We are also a bit interested in how analog and digital coming together to form this high-tech machine that would attract the visitor to actually want to answer the questions and to really hear the sound of the plotter.
Was this all produced in Singapore, manufactured in Singapore or nearby?
It's a hybrid. Some parts of the machine is manufactured in Singapore. We brought it in.
Yeah.
The structure of it is actually manufactured in Italy.
It's in Italy, okay. So it's a mix of local and Italian technology.
Yes.
Function of economics.
Collaboration, right?
So I want to give each of you, Adrian, Melvin, and Ker, the last, you can make your comments to this, all respond to this question. What do you feel in the 21st century, in an age of globally, we have a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, movements that are not inclusionary, but exactly the opposite, where people are separated, people are not listened to, there's a top-down imposition of certain ideas, both in propaganda and things like this. In America, we see this, places like Turkey, where we're from, we see this. What do you feel Singapore as a test case can provide the world today, both as a society and as architecture? Just a short answer from each of you.
I think the biggest thing that came out of this exhibition is the tool of the relatable question. I think we have to ask ourselves questions where we can relate to both sides. And when you do that, you situate yourself outside yourself, considering someone else. Because if this question moves you,
Empathy, in a way.
empathy, human condition, universality, right? And I think the relatable question really is important for us to then bridge opposite sides and then to see the kind of spectrum in between rather than just holding our ground. Because if we flesh it out a little bit more, we might be closer than we think.
Right.
I think that kind of time that we need to give to each other to air out the issues is really key. So the relatable question, I think,
And with time.
and time, to give each other time, I think it's key.
Melvin?
I think from Singapore's perspective, having that model where government practitioners have sorted out their differences, and when everything is in place, Singapore can start to answer questions out of that place.
Right, okay.
And where we can push, and like we asked, when is enough really is about questioning beyond what has already been established as good. And I think with that kind of an environment of trust, I think other nations can possibly test and push boundaries more effectively.
And Ker, your last statement?
Well, I think one of the key point of our exhibition is to open up the definition of architecture.
Right.
And we want people to understand that it's a spectrum of answers. It's a non-binary, not yes or no kind of answers to everything. And being more introspective, not just you start to think about you and your environment, it's also you among the many others out there. What kind of decisions you make? It's not just left, right? It's really a spectrum.
Yeah. That's been very interesting to speak with you guys, Adrian, Melvin, and Ker. I didn't, I have to admit, we always have preconceived ideas about places, and this was something I did not expect. I think your critical view on both Singapore, but on urban life today around the world, I think there's a lot to be seen here in this exhibition, When Is Enough Enough? So I want to thank the curators of the Singapore National Pavilion at the Arsenale 2023 Biennial Architecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.